Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd, we are continuing our studies within a work that is entitled Shurut al-Salah wa Arkanuha wa Wajibatuha, the conditions of the prayer, its pillars, and its requirements, as has been authored by Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. May Allah bestow expansive mercy upon his soul. And the primary commentary that we're utilizing is that of the esteemed scholar, the Allama, the Muhaddith, the Faqih, Shaykh Abdul Muhsin ibn Hamid al-Abad al-Badr. May Allah, the exalted, preserve him. And in our previous sittings, we have discussed the title to this work. We offered an introduction to this work, and we entered into and completed the first three conditions of the prayer. The first three conditions of the prayer being al-Islam, al-Aql, and al-Tamyiz. Being Islam, being reason, if you like, or having your mental faculties operating properly. And three is Tamyiz, the age of discernment. So we discussed all of those with some detail last week. We now enter into the fourth condition of the prayer. And before we mention the fourth conditions, a brief review. The word shurut is the plural of the word sharat. The word conditions is the plural of the word condition. And in the technical language of scholarship, in fiqh, in jurisprudence, the meaning of a condition is what? What is a condition in Islam? Good. That which is non-existence necessitates non-existence, and that which its existence does not necessitate the existence of the reason it is done. Good. Who can explain that? Make that more simplistic. Yes.
If you make wudoo, that doesn't mean you're praying.
If you make wudoo, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are in a state of salah.
But you need wudoo to pray.
But you do need wudoo to pray. Okay, good. That's definition by example, and then that works. So the first half of the definition, that which its non-existence necessitates non-existence. If it doesn't exist, what it is a condition of also does not exist. No wudoo, no salah. If your wudu doesn't exist, your state of purification, tahara. If your wudu doesn't exist, then your prayer cannot be valid, right? Regardless of whether you pray or not. It's not a valid prayer. So the non-existence of wudu necessitates the non-existence of salah. Likewise, it existing does not mean what it is a condition of also exists. Not necessarily. So if you have made wudu, though, even the wudu, tahara, purification, even the wudu is a condition of prayer. If you have made wudu, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're praying. So anything that fits this definition, now it becomes a sharat. It becomes a condition in Islam. And how is it that a person can have wudu but not be praying? Perhaps you are practicing the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, لا يحافظ على الوضوء إلا مؤمن. There is no one who safeguards his wudu except for that person is a mu'min. That person has iman, is a believer. Meaning whether you're praying or not, just as your regular practice, you strive to stay in a state of wudu throughout the day. You don't have to be praying to do that, right? Okay. But you are prepared to pray at any moment throughout the day because you're always in a state of wudu. You break your wudu, then you renew it. Okay, this is a condition. Now, we come into the fourth condition of the prayer. Sharatul Rabi'. Raf'ul hadath. removal of spiritual impurities. Removal of spiritual impurities. If you like, removal of ritual impurities. وَهُوَ الْوُضُوء الْمَعْرُوفِ. And it is the wudu that is well known. It is the ablution that is well known. وَمُوجِبُهُ الْحَدَثِ. And that which obligates it, meaning in that which obligates wudu, is a hadath. The term is a hadath. A hadath, as far as translation is concerned, it is a ritual impurity, or you can say a spiritual impurity. Most of us in our rearing throughout our Islamic lives, we're taught this as the things that break your wudu. That's how we learn them. The things that nullify your ablution. But the technical term for that is a hadath. It's called hadath. Okay? And the commentator here states, Al-hadath huwa kullu kharijin min as-sabilayn wa kadha a nawaqid wudu wa kadha a naqidun lil wudu. He states that the hadath, the ritual impurity or the spiritual impurity, it is everything that exits from the two orifices. It is everything that exits from the two orifices. The two orifices, this is a nice way to indicate the two common places for the waste of the human body to exit from. All right, same page. Waste of the human body normally exits one of two ways. Those two places that it exits from, this is an orifice. So anything that exits from one of the two orifices, these things exiting or this action of it exiting is a hadath, is a ritual impurity. Okay, so the act of releasing that waste is the ritual or spiritual impurity, or it is a hadath. Now, we should also mention here that a hadath, it is divided into two types. There is al-hadath al-asghar and there is al-hadath al-akbar. There is a major ritual, there is a minor ritual impurity, and there's also a major ritual impurity. Okay, so there's minor and major. We feel like major and minor. But there is a minor ritual impurity, a minor hadath, and there is a major ritual impurity or a major hadath. Hadath al-asghar and hadath al-akbar. The minor ritual impurity is that which makes it obligatory upon you to perform wudu. A major ritual impurity is that which requires you to perform a ghusl, is that which requires you to perform a ritual bath. And because we have mentioned now wudu, and we have mentioned ghusl, we have mentioned ablution, and we have mentioned a ritual bath, we also have to make mention of tayammum, right? Not what do we Americans say? Tayammum, I think we say in America, right? But it's tayammum, right? We also have to make mention of tayammum, or dry ablution. And the dry ablution is utilized when there's either a lack of water or there is lack of access to water for that particular purpose. Meaning there's no water at all. Or you have water, but you need it for something else, like drinking or something like this, right? And you don't want to lose, you don't want to die of thirst or something like this, or it's for some other purpose where it will take away if you use it to cleanse yourself or to enter into a state of purification. Okay? So if there's some reason now, whether the water exists or it doesn't exist, or it exists, but the water is to be used for something else that you also need. Now you can perform tayammum, dry ablution. And when you perform tayammum, dry ablution, it will take the place of wudu or ghusl. It will take the place of ablution or the ritual bath. Yes. Really?
I didn't hear that. Never know.
Really?
They're taking place of ghusl.
Yes. If you don't have access to water, or if the water is for something else, you need it for some other purpose, like cooking or drinking or something like this, you don't have water to use.
But with the tayammum, you can't wash off the impurities.
That's true. But okay, excellent. So this is why we're making mention of a hadith as a ritual or spiritual impurity, which is different from what we'll come to later, which is najasa, which is actual physical filth itself. Okay? All right. But to your point, we have the famous hadith that we're all familiar with, where the companions were out on an expedition. One of the Sahaba, one of the companions, he gets wounded in his head, and then he has a wet dream, right? He has a wet dream. So he has the release of seminal fluid, okay? And now he's asking, because if he did this, now he has to make a ghusl, and he knows this. So then he asks the other companions who he feels that know the situation, have more knowledge than him, should I take a ghusl with this wound that I have in my head, right? And they tell him, well, we don't see any other way out. You have to make ghusl. So he does. And perhaps we don't have to state it explicitly in the hadith, but perhaps there was some form of an infection or something like that, where it should have been covered and water shouldn't have gotten into it at that point. We don't know how deep the gash was, right? But he passes. And then the Prophet ﷺ has to correct the companions concerning this, right? Don't you all know that the cure for ignorance is to ask a question? Why didn't you ask? Meaning, had you asked, I would have told you all that it is not for him to make a ghusl. He should have made tayammum, the dry ablution. That's the understanding from that. Right? Okay. So then we understand what a hadith is. The fourth condition of the prayer is removing hadith. So before we pray, in order for our prayer to be valid, we have to have removed any ritual impurities. And again, the hadith, it is that which obligates us to perform wudu. And we mentioned as well that it comes in a form that is both major and minor. And we did state it that way. And that's accurate. That which requires you to perform wudu, it is a minor ritual impurity. That which would cause you to perform a ghusl, a ritual bath, this is not a major hadith. But to list out some of those things, for example, what are some things that will require you to perform wudu? Passing of wind. Good. What else? Wudu. Urination, right? Defecation. Okay, fine. When we are speaking to a major ritual impurity, then it requires it. We now are required to perform an ghusl from things such as the menstrual cycle, postnatal bleeding, for example, the crossing of the two organs, the male and the female, and or climaxing, right? They can be separate, right? These things now will require a ghusl, right? So these acts are now considered hadith al-akbar. They are considered to be a major ritual impurity. Yes.
One brother told me that the men, when they go to the bathroom, they shouldn't even touch themselves.
We'll get to that, inshallah. We actually do cover that. We do get to that, inshallah. The short answer is yes, that is a thing. Right? Yes, that is a thing. Short answer, but there are more details to that. So we have a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in which he states, "Inna sa'id tayyib tuhurul Muslim, that surface earth, it is purification for the Muslim. Surface earth, it is purification for the Muslim. Even if he does not find water for 10 years. And if he finds water, then he wipes his skin with it. He touches his skin with it. فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. For certainly this is good. Collected by Timothy and other than him on the authority of Abu Dharr. May Allah be pleased with him. And Timothy states that this hadith is Hasan Sahih. And this hadith is evidence of what we call tayammum, or what we call dry ablution, right? Surface earth, meaning the top of the ground, top soil, right, as it were. And inshallah ta'ala, we can make mention of this very briefly. We don't want to get too far off of the beaten path here, but in order to perform tayammum, either we have surface earth, dry surface earth, right? Dry surface earth, and or we have something that has something similar on it to dry surface earth. Dust. Okay? Dust. So then, if there is dust on a thing, then it can become allowable to utilize that dust for tayammum. Now, what are the measures concerning this? You'll find some making mention of just dust and leaving it open. You'll find others mentioning, like, for example, let's say there is a stone wall, for example, right? So some will make mention, if there's enough dust on the stone wall that when you strike it, you'll see the dust come off of it. Now that is sufficient to perform tayammum. Some will add that criteria. But there's dust there in general. So in common terms, if there is enough dust in a place, it can be utilized for tayammum. For example, the windowsill has a tendency to collect dust, for example. For some of us, in top of the car, right? What is that? We call that the visor? Is that the visor? Right? What do you call that counter space area on top of the car? This word's not coming to me. The dashboard. Thank you. Right? The dashboard also has a tendency to collect dust, right? So then these areas, if we're not following that stipulation that I mentioned, then these now become permissible to perform tayammum with, for example. The walls, if the walls collect dust, right? So we do have an example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, particularly, interestingly enough, after intimacy. We have an example of him in place of performing wudoo, right? As an encouragement. Right? We're familiar with that sunnah. As an encouragement, in place of doing that, striking his hand on his wall to perform tayammum, right? It's a lesser known sunnah, okay? But this would also indicate to us that there was some dust on those walls. You follow? Okay. So performance of tayammum, you're going to say Bismillah, you're going to strike the surface earth and or the place where surface earth is, or similar to surface earth is upon it. You're going to say Bismillah and strike it, and you're going to wipe the hands. You're going to wipe the face. Well, grass, yes, but not the grass because of the grass because of the surface earth beneath that grass.
You would rather use dirt than the grass. Because if you get the grass, a lot of times you won't get any dirt on you.
Okay, so great. So this is ritual and spiritual, right? So it's not necessarily about you actually have to get the dirt and touch it and feel it and rub it, right? But you're just striking it. You're just striking it, right? Because it is a spiritual purification. So far, so good. Okay.
So it's only the hands and the face, nothing.
The forearms as well. Another discussion. Inshallah will come to it. Inshallah will come to it. Okay. So, interestingly enough, now that we know that wudu removes a minor ritual impurity, hadath al-asghar, and a ghusl removes a major ritual impurity, hadath al-akbar, and we know that tayammum, dry ablution, can remove either one of them because we don't have access to water. What is our intention when performing a ghusl? Meaning, when you perform a ghusl, do you make your intent to remove both major and minor? Or just one of the two? What's going on inside of you now? What's your intent? To purify yourself, good. From a major ritual impurity or from a minor ritual impurity? Okay. Okay, isn't wudu inside of the ghusl? Okay, the act is there. Technically, yes. Right? Technically, if we're following the full sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in performance of wudu, and performance of ghusl, then yes, you have to perform wudu by default inside of your performance of ghusl. Okay? There are other ways to perform a ghusl that do not adhere to the entire of those sunnah, but outside of our scope right now. What's the intention of the person, though? Depends on the situation.
So if you're major impurity, then your intention is when you make ghusl of major impurity.
Okay, so let's read what the commentator states here. If a person is performing a ghusl from a hadath akbar, from a major ritual impurity, he makes his intention, niyyah, to remove al-hadath al-akbar wal-asghar. He makes his intention to remove both major and minor ritual impurities. As for if an individual is pouring water over the body for the ghusl of Jumu'ah, we're encouraged to make ghusl for Jumu'ah, right? Excluding, or this is outside of a hadath, right? Outside of a hadath, maybe that didn't occur. We're still encouraged to perform ghusl for Jumu'ah. Or an individual wants to cool off the self, right? Right now it's summertime, it's very hot. Seems as though we're in some form of a heat wave. Some people may take a cool shower to cool their bodies down. He states, this person makes the intention to remove minor ritual impurities. Then this would not suffice for the removal of a major ritual impurity, because the person did not make the intention to remove a major ritual impurity. So just the act of a ghusl itself isn't enough. You also need the intention. That's the point. So the act of ghusl is the same. So you can perform a ghusl minor ritual impurity and removing it. But if your intention is only to remove a minor ritual impurity, then it does not remove a major ritual impurity. So then the matter of the intent becomes important here when performing ghusl. Why are you performing that ghusl? Because the intention, it is al-azam ala fi'l. It is the resolve to perform an action, the decision to perform an action. It is what you are doing and why you are doing it. So far, so good? Okay. Shurutul wudu. So we are still in the fourth condition of the prayer. But because of the importance of wudu relative to our prayer, the author now enters into further detail about this fourth condition, and he speaks about it independently. So he now enters into shurutul wudu, the conditions for wudu, the conditions for ablution. And he lists them out. There are 10 of them. There are 10 conditions of wudu, meaning before you perform wudu, there are 10 things that you and I are meant to have in place for our wudu to be considered valid. If one of them is off, then we threaten the validity of our ablution. So it's not just taking water and putting water on ourselves. Okay? The author states, وَشُرُوطُهُ عَشَرًا, and its conditions are 10. Al-Islam, wal-aql, wat-tamyiz, wan-niyya. Islam, intellect, your proper mental faculties are operating. Tamyiz, this is the age of discernment. And the niyya, and the intention. These are 4. He continues and he states, وَاسْتِصْحَابُ حُكْمِهَا بِإِنْ لَا يَنْوِي قَطْعَهَا حَتَّى تَتَمَّ الطَّهَارَةِ. And you have istishab in its hukm. You have continuity in its verdict. Meaning, when you make your intention, this is number 5. When you make your intention, you make your intention to complete the entire of the wudu without making your intention to cut off your wudu before it's complete. Meaning, this is how important your intention is. Generally, people do this because you don't know you can do anything else, right? But when you make wudu, is it possible that you make your intention to make wudu up to the washing of your arms and stop? When you start, you intend to wash up to your arms. Then maybe you get back to the rest later. If you make that your intention, this does not fulfill the condition of prayer. Why? Because you're not fulfilling the condition of wudu. That is a condition of prayer. So a condition of wudu itself, when you formulate your intention, you have to intend to perform an entire wudu. You have to intend to perform it from start to finish. That's your intent. You haven't done anything yet, but your intent is to perform the entire of it from beginning to the end. It continues. وَانْقِطَاعُ مَوْجِبٍ, and you cut off anything that obligated wudu. And you cut off anything that obligated wudu. Meaning what? What would obligate your wudu? Like some of the things that you mentioned before, such as urination, defecation, and the passing of wind. Meaning what? Meaning you have to finish those things before you perform wudu. You let your body go through that before you perform wudu. Okay. So that's over now. That function of the body has been complete. Now you make wudu. وَاسْتِنْجَاء أَوْ اسْتِجْمَارٍ قَبْلَهُ, and the performance of istinja or istijmar before it. Meaning before you perform wudu, you have made istinja or istijmar. We'll discuss those two shortly. Yes.
That's a requirement.
Yes. Absolutely.
Depending on, just in general.
Of wudu, yes.
Each time you make wudu, you should have it. That's it.
No. It's not each time that you make wudu that you have to perform istinja. It is now if you have performed this hadith, right? This minor hadith, then you don't leave it on yourself and make wudu. You Yes, if you've done that act, right, urination, defecation, you now have to make istinja or istijmar.
But if you wait to make wudu, then you don't have to listen to that again.
No.
So it's not requirement.
No.
Okay.
Right. Okay, good. We're clear? Okay. Now, istinja and istijmar can be synonyms. Either one can mean either one. But if we're being more particular, then istinja is cleansing the self after having answered the call of nature. Understand the color in my language, right? Cleansing oneself after having answered the call of nature with water. You cleanse yourself with water. Istijmar is cleansing oneself with stone. Istijmar is cleansing oneself with stone. Okay? Not stones like we're used to necessarily here on the East Coast, right? But smooth, sleek stone. And we have them here. You've seen them before, right? There are certain stones that the stone itself it may have some length to it. You can pick it up, right? You may even be able to kind of scoop something up with it almost, right? Or move something with it, right? But it has some size to it, and it's a smooth, sleek stone, right? And it may have different shapes. There's a tendency for it to have an oval-like shape when we see it, but it can have different shapes. Okay. Cleansing oneself with water or with stone. Stone meaning the smooth, sleek stone. This has to be utilized when we have answered the call of nature before we perform wudu. So when we have to answer the call of nature, and we do answer the call of nature, we allow ourselves to finish, we allow our bodies to finish answering the call of nature, and then we perform istinja, istijmar. Yes. 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 Wipes. Okay. Muslims carry wipes for that person, for that reason. Okay, so let's have the discussion. The first discussion is this. If you perform istinja by itself, or you perform istijmar by itself, does either one suffice? If you cleanse yourself with water only, is it sufficient? And if you cleanse yourself with smooth, sleek stone only, is it sufficient? That's question one. Yes? You say yes? Answer is yes. Okay, that's correct. Now, istijmar means smooth, sleek stone or whatever takes the place of it in its utility, or whatever takes the place of it. So for us today, whatever takes the place of it, it's going to be tissue. It's going to be tissue, okay? Of the stones, yes. Tissue, toilet paper, right? TP, as it was coined throughout the pandemic, right? Okay, so if either one suffices, can we do both? Can you utilize water and stone or whatever takes place of stone? Yes, you can. Good. So you can. The next question is, should you? Should you do both? Is it better? Does it have more virtue in doing both? Huh? Okay, good. So the purpose here is cleaning, right? So, is it better to do both? Answer again is yes. Answer again is yes. We're going to show you how far this discussion goes, right? We think we just do what we do and move on. Keep coming.
When you say both, what are you saying exactly?
Utilizing water to clean yourself, right, from the front or the rear, and utilizing, let's say, toilet paper to also cleanse yourself from the front and the rear, right? Okay. So both. Okay, it's better to do both. If you do one, either one of the other suffices. Better to do both. Okay. Which order is the better order to do it in if you're going to do both? Is it better to do water before toilet paper or toilet paper before water? Okay, scholarship differs on this.
Toilet paper, water is done.
This Egyptian brother told me you have to do water first.
Mhm.
Even on the number 2,
Mm-hmm.
you got to do water first.
Do water first.
Although I don't do it that way.
Okay. Either way you do it, it's at the end of the day, because the goal is to remove what? Good, to remove the filth. To remove the filth, right? Okay. Let's continue with this discussion, and then we'll take a break, inshallah. Removing the filth, how much of it? All of it. Because it becomes we have to now have this discussion, because if we're wrong, our salah is invalid, right? We'll come to this when we speak about filth, but we cannot pray with filth on our physical bodies, on our clothing, or in the place where we are praying. There can't be filth there. So when we're cleansing ourselves, how much filth do we have to remove? You say all of it. Okay. If all of it is removed, are there occasions where there is still an odor that may remain? Yes.
I know what you're talking about.
Is it possible for after you've done everything that you've done, right? You've cleansed yourself, but there is still some possible residue that's left over? Maybe a drop or two of urine, possibly, right? Maybe some form of a light skid mark. Maybe. Right? So now this is what scholarship says. That the goal is to remove the focus of the filth. The goal is to remove the concentration of the filth itself. And after we've done everything that we're able to do, then we're not held to account for some of the residue that may possibly remain, right? Such as an odor or maybe some drops or something like this, something light, right? We're not held to account to that, right? That's how that conversation kind of goes. So now to your discussion, with regards to the use of wipes, so long as these wipes achieve the goal that we've just detailed out, then it's allowable to use, right? Then it's allowable to use for that purpose, okay? However, I would suggest that the flushable wipes are used and not just baby wipes. Those have a tendency to clog up your toilets, and it'll be very costly. You have to call someone. Liquid plumber isn't going to get that. All right. So, all right. All of this being stated, though, scholarship does mention, although allowable to perform istijmar by itself, the residue that may remain, you can, with istijmar, you can remove the concentration of the filth itself, but you may not remove all of it. The only way to remove all of it is with the use of water. So because of this, scholarship will state that it is better to use water even if you're performing istijmar. Does that make sense? Okay. And there is a very simple example of this that we're unable to demonstrate who we have in front of us. But let's say something simple. We've seen tiling in floor before, right? And in between the tiles, there's that, well, I'm not going to have the proper argot here, right? But there's that grout, if you will, that's in between those tiles. Let's say you took some chocolate and then you smeared the chocolate in those cracks, right? You took a dry tissue or dry paper towel to then wipe it. Will all of it come out? No. But if you took water and you washed it out, would it all come out? That's istinja istijmar. So it is allowable to perform istijmar, right? And the concentration of it will be removed. But in order to remove all of it, you have to use water. So then now the only discussion is, now that we know it's better to do both, the only discussion now becomes which one comes before the other. And we'll just say whichever one is more effective for you. You do that one before the other one. Okay? Scholarship comes with their reasoning. And I recall sitting with Sheikh Ubaid Jabari, may Allah preserve him, and speaking about this particular issue. He mentions that you should perform istijmar before istinja, right? And the reasoning that he offered for this is that if you perform istinja before istijmar, that you're just going to just smudge things around, right, before you're able to actually remove it. And then after you've smudged it around, it becomes more difficult to remove with tissue. And scholarship takes that particular view, right? We will say though, if you choose to do this, you can do either way. If you choose to do this, if you choose to perform istijmar before istinja, you are going to use much more toilet paper than you would if you perform istinja first. But whichever one works best for you, that is what you should do. Yes?
The problem with toilet paper is once it gets wet, it's useless.
Toilet paper, once it gets wet, is useless.
Unless you use paper towel afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole size of that.
Well, that's why the sister said wipes, huh?
Toilet paper,
Toilet paper,
water,
and then water,
paper towel.
and then paper towel.
Done. Dries it, removes it,
Mm-hmm.
crisp.
Tell you. So the remainder of the conditions of wudu. I believe we've reached 7, but please keep count. Please keep count. Tuhuriyatu ma and wa ibahatuhu. The purity of water and its permissibility. That's actually a discussion. The water must be pure that we use for wudu, and it must be permissible water for you to utilize. You say, what's permissible water? Meaning, and this is a discussion, we're not going to have it now, but so we know when it comes. If the water is stolen, or if it's water that you don't have permission to use, it's someone else's water. Maybe it's a spigot on the side of the house or something like that. It is someone else's house. You need to make wudu. It's time for salah. You don't have access to water, but there are tons of houses in the neighborhood. Can you go on the side of someone's house, turn on the spigot, and use their water to make wudu? And then your wudu is valid. Is your wudu valid if you do that? Right? Because now it's technically stolen water. Right? So that's the discussion. We'll get to it, inshallah. What izalatu, and removing that which prevents water from reaching the skin. Removing that which prevents water from reaching the skin. Okay, this is a condition of wudu. This is number 9. Now, what is this talking about? Well, this could be nail polish. This could be could be nail polish, but now we have the water-based nail polish now, right? But it could possibly be nail polish, could possibly be makeup, it could possibly be a very thick coating of something on the skin, right? I'm trying to think of something common that we might place on our skins, but not a regular usage of lotion or Vaseline, right? Or cocoa butter or shea butter, but sometimes we can put so much on that it actually cakes up on the skin. We put more on than the skin can absorb, right? Okay. Now this is a discussion. Face painting. Some people do face painting, right? Will this now prevent the water from? Is it a barrier? Henna, for example, right? All these now become discussions, right? We know henna doesn't prevent, right? But all these are discussions. The things that prevent the water from reaching the skin now have to be removed before we perform wudu. Sheikh Hamza. A cast. Excellent question. Go ahead. Go ahead. What are you going to say? Tattoos. Removing the tattoo before wudu. If it's in the skin. Okay. So if a person is wearing a cast, then you would not perform wudu on that particular body part, right? You would perform mess. You would wipe over that body part if that is allowable to do without harming the cast, right? If it's going to harm the cast, you wouldn't do anything at all. But at most, you would just wipe the same way that you would wipe over your feet. Now you're wiping over the cast the same way, okay? Now, with regards to tattoos, the question becomes, does the tattoo prevent water from reaching the surface of the skin, right? Separate issue from whether it's lawful to get it or not. We know people have it, right? So does it prevent the water from reaching the skin? I do not think the tattoo prevents water from reaching the surface of the skin, right? I'm not an expert.
The tattoo's in the skin.
The tattoo is beneath the epidermis, right? I believe that's that level of the skin, the epidermis, right? It goes beneath that level of the skin. So the surface of the skin is being reached in Allah's best, right? We're not saying to get tattoos, but there are people that already have them, right, when they come into the faith, right? Okay. The last condition of wudu, it is entrance of the time of prayer. دخول وقت على من حدثه دائم لفرضه. An entrance of the proper time for the one who has a constant hadith, for the one who has a constant ritual impurity as an obligation. What are we talking about? A constant ritual impurity? Flatulence, incontinence, right? Some people suffer from this. Some people suffer from an inability to fully control their urination, right? Or fully control the passing of their wind, right? For whatever reason, some people have some type of relaxation in those muscles. And it can happen to anyone, but there's a tendency for this to happen to us as we get older at times. And maybe this person may have some drops of something. Maybe this person may not be able to control the passing of their wind. And regardless of what they do, it just kind of happens. So in this situation, the obligation of performing wudu is not whether you've entered into a minor ritual impurity or not. The obligation for you now is entrance of the time of prayer. So now when dhuhr enters, regardless of whether you have broken your wudu or not, you make wudu. Same in Asr, Maghrib, Isha, and Fajr. Okay? And now in between these periods, when you suffer from flatulence or incontinence, then it doesn't harm the validity of your state of purification. You can continue to pray if you suffer from this type of an ailment. These are the 10 conditions of wudu. And we did spend some time in reviewing our test for today. So because of that, we are now close to the time for Salat al-Dhuhr. So perhaps we wanted to cover a lot more material today, but it was also important that we did do a good review of the test. So we will pause here. We won't enter into an explanation of these conditions of wudu, although we did explain some of it, especially with istijaa and istijmar. but we'll enter into these details, hopefully complete the remaining conditions of the prayer. There are 9 of them. We're at number 4. And even enter into some of the pillars of the prayer next week, inshallah ta'ala. Hada wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu a'lam. Yes. Yes. Questions on what we covered today?
Like a skin disease.
A skin disease.
I remember brother, he had something wrong with his skin.
Okay.
Just touch his arms.
Maybe some type of extreme eczema or something like that, maybe. Yeah. Then, if it's to that degree, that water irritates it, person will make tayammum, right? Either for that area of the body or make tayammum for the entire of the body if it's right, all over the body, right? Because now what we have, you would, if you can perform the entire wudu, you perform the entire wudu, okay? If you have something preventing you, like a cast or something like that, you would wipe over that particular area. If there's some areas that you cannot that you cannot get any water on at all for medicinal reasons, perhaps, then you would wash the areas that you can and perform tayammum for the rest. And if you cannot put water on any of your body, right, due to maybe some type of excessive skin condition like what he's describing, then you would just perform tayammum. Yes.
What about if you forgot one step?
You forgot a step in from performance of wudu.
Do you start from the beginning, or do you go back to the step where you forget?
Okay, you're performing wudu. You get to a certain space.
You gotta clean your elbows.
Okay, you forgot. You have doubt now whether you washed.
No, there's no doubt. You didn't.
There's no doubt. Oh, you didn't do it.
You didn't.
You have certainty that you didn't do it. Okay. If you have certainty that you did not do it, and a long period of time has not passed, okay? A long period of time has not passed is relative, but a long period of time passing, meaning a period of time has not passed that is long enough for you to air dry, right? So the skin is still damp, still wet, or you're in a period of time that it still would be wet had you not wiped it off with the towel. Okay, if you're in that time frame, then you go back to the area you did not wash and continue forward. Okay? If it is beyond now a short period of time, and you enter into a long period of time, meaning it's long enough that you have air dried or you would have air dried, now you start over from beginning. Now, if you have doubt, okay, you're making wudu and you have doubt whether you wash this area or that area. Okay, similar. We build on yaqeen, not on shak. We build on certainty, not on doubt. So then you go back to the point that you're certain of and start forward from there, right? However, there's a caveat to this, and there are some people who suffer from waswas. There are some people who suffer from whispers of shaitan. So you have certain people who they just keep washing an area over and over again, right? Because they have doubt. And it's not doubt that's doubt, it's from the whispers of shaitan. We had a brother like this. May Allah preserve our brother. Of course, we won't mention his name, but we love him. And I hope that he knows that we love him. But back when we were teenagers, he would, when trying to make salah, he would be in the bathroom 25, 30 minutes. He didn't need to use the bathroom, just wudu. Because he was suffering from this waswas. Shaitan comes to him, no, you didn't wash that. You didn't wash this good enough. You have to do it over. If you're in this space, then the cure for this, you then have to ignore the waswas and move forward. If this is your situation, you ignore the whispers and you continue moving forward. If it is legitimate doubt, though, if it's legitimate doubt, then you go back to that which you are certain of and then move forward from that point. Whispers, you ignore it. Okay, you missed from the list? Okay. So we'll go back. Okay. All right. So last question and then last question. Sheikh Hamza.
Okay. Let's say you're at home and you just say to yourself, you're going to the masjid and you're going to make salat.
Yes.
Is that your intention?
Yes.
Even if you say, well, I'm going in the bathroom, make wudu. Is that your intention?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. So Sheikh Hamza is saying, go ahead.
It's nothing special or something you have to say in Arabic.
No. So Sheikh Hamza is asking a question. The example he's giving is, if you're going to the masjid, so you say to yourself, I'm going to go to the masjid. You're going to make wudu. You say to yourself, you're going to make wudu. Does that suffice for your intention? Yes. Because the intention is the decision to do something. The point that you have decided to do a thing, that is the niyyah. That's the intention. You haven't done it yet. You just made the decision within yourself. That decision is the intention. You don't have to verbalize that. There's nothing special to say in Arabic, for example. The intention is, it's a matter of the heart, right? The intention is the statement of your heart, right? And that's it. You make that decision inside of yourself. But now the spiritual exercise becomes becoming more particular about what exactly it is that you're deciding that you're doing, right? Like for example, the example we gave about the ghusl. Is your decision to remove a major impurity or just a minor impurity, right? You can make the decision to do both, but it's happening here. Is your intention now to please Allah, or is it also something that's personal, right? Is your intention in performing an action? Maybe you keep the family ties, right? You join the family ties, and you're offering your joining of your family ties, being good to your family, taking care of your family, being in contact with your family, and you want to please Allah with that. But we know that it's also legislated that when you do this, Allah will increase you in your wealth and extend your lifespan as well. So then you add that to your intention too. That's in your decision to do this. This is why I'm calling this relative that I love. This is why I'm calling this relative that I really don't want to talk to, right? You make this part of your intention now, right? So with time, you learn to build and grow your intention inside of yourself. And you learn to check yourself and why you're doing something all the time. Am I doing it for Allah's pleasure, or am I really doing it for some other reason? Do I have a neutral reason why I'm doing it? It's not good or bad? Or am I doing something that is bad? Or am I doing a good thing for a bad reason? We have all these different scenarios going on in our heart, right? So we become conscious of it. We wrestle with it, and we learn to train, and we build our intentions. Sufyan al-Thawri, rahimahullah ta'ala, he states, "Ma alajtu shay'in ashadda alayya min niyyati fa innaha tataqallabu alayya." I have not corrected anything. I haven't treated anything. I haven't healed anything that was more difficult for me than my intention. For certainly, I find that it turns on me. So you make your intention initially, but then as you're going through the act, or some time has passed, we have to renew our intentions every now and again, right? Even with our Islam, right? Some years may pass by. We have to renew our intentions, right? Our sister's going to ask. There was a last question, yes.
Oh, 6 and 7.
Oh, okay. Let's go over the list again. Al-Islam. Al-Aql, call it the intellect, reason, proper use of mental faculties. At-Tamyiz, number 3. And Niyya, number 4. Number 5, continuity of intent. Number 6, the obligation ceasing. And we're listing this, but hopefully you understand what we mean by these things because we explained them. The obligation ceasing, meaning what made it obligatory to make wudu, urination, defecation. The obligation ceasing. Next, We're at number 7. Istinja or istijmar before it. That's number 7. Istinja or istijmar before it. Number 8, the purity of the water and its permissibility. The purity and permissibility of the water. Number 8, removing what prevents access to the skin. Number 8, removing what prevents access to the skin. Excuse me, that's number 9. That's number 9. Number 8, the purity and permissibility of water. Number 9, removing what prevents access to the skin. And number 10, entrance of the proper time for the one who has a constant hadith, for the one who has a constant ritual impurity. That's all 10. So we got it? Barakallahu feekum.